because military influence often precedes financial integration. Once these nations deepen their military ties with China, shifting trade and currency preferences follow. We need look no further than how U.S. military alliances shaped dollar-based trade norms after World War II. We might be witnessing that playbook flipped. Let's rewind. In 1870, the U.S. economy was just reaching equivalency with the UK, the global superpower at the time. But even as the U.S. grew larger, richer, the pound sterling remained the world's reserve for decades afterward. It wasn't until 1944, after America's wartime economic surge and military dominance, that the dollar finally replaced the pound internationally. Why the delay? Because economic muscle is necessary. But geopolitical dominance is the catalyst. It always follows power, not theory. So, if China is pushing for the yuan to become a global reserve currency, what's the collateral? Two things: military credibility and gold. Gold isn't just a metal, it's global trust. Nearly every civilization across different eras has come to the same conclusion. Gold represents power, permanence, and value. China knows this, which is why its central bank has been quietly accelerating its gold purchases. In just the last few months, China has added over 30 tons of gold to its reserves. Its total holdings now reach record highs, and the share of gold in its foreign reserves is climbing fast. Why? Beijing isn't trying to back the yuan with gold like in the 19th century. Instead, they're establishing the yuan as a credible, gold-linked settlement currency, especially in energy trading. According to reports, China's Shanghai Gold Exchange is preparing to launch offshore gold delivery centers, starting in Hong Kong and possibly later in the UAE or Saudi Arabia. And here's the kicker: if you're a country holding offshore yuan, you'll soon be able to exchange that directly for gold, not USD, not euros, physical, vaulted gold. For countries with large trade surpluses and commodity exports, especially energy like oil and gas, this presents a compelling alternative to the US-dominated SWIFT dollar system. This is the quiet mechanism Beijing is using to encourage international trade while protecting partners from FX and dollar exposure at the same time. So let's bring it all together. The India-Pakistan conflict may be a spark, but the consequences are global. With combat-proven Chinese jets entering the global arms market, with developing economies breaking military dependence on the West, with China tying its growing military presence to a gold-backed financial strategy, and with nations lining up to trade oil and gas in yuan rather than dollars. We are witnessing a geopolitical shift with enormous monetary consequences. And for Americans, this means inflation may no longer be rewarded just through poor domestic policy, but forced onto us externally as the world gradually reduces dollar usage. As more countries hold fewer dollars, their value drops. And that means higher prices. If you've stored wealth in paper fiat for years, this new world is going to decline. Before we wrap up, I want to hear your take. Do you think the dollar will remain global reserve, or are we entering a multi-polar monetary era?
Pentagon is a perfect record in all of its war games against China. At the same time, China, a big reason for developing our initiative is to not only strengthen its maritime shipping routes and its connectivity at sea, but also through land routes in order to bypass completely the U.S.'s intent to choke off. All that is to say is that now we actually have over 140 plus countries that developed our initiative. We have vast majority of the world trading with China, including its top partners all across ASEAN and Asia Pacific, trading with China as their number one partner. And you even had South Korea, Japan, despite all of their exercises and provocations for China to any degrees economically, they refuse to decouple fully because of the disaster that it would be. So in a lot of ways, the United States is running out of cards or simply out of cards, and that means, Brian, all these border games, all of these provocations, all of this military buildup, in my opinion, the only conflict that the U.S. and China will fight directly against each other is a nuclear conflict, because there's no reason or way. First of all, you guys have said the U.S. can't win that kind of war. China is not going to let itself be invaded. Why does it have a nuclear deterrent in the first place? So, Brian, your thoughts on this conclusion that I come to when I hear U.S.-China war?
I would be very careful. This is something that I had lost before 2014 in regards to Europe. We remember what Europe was like before 2014. There was so much cooperation between Europe and Russia, but also Europe and China. It was growing. It looked inevitable that Europe was going to work its way out from under the shadow of American political capture, hegemony, primacy, wherever you call it. But then what happened? The United States violently overthrew the Ukrainian government. They started what was a festering war in Ukraine, and they threw Russia into this proxy war. Russia launched its special military operation in 2022. That served as the catalyst to force Europe, force them to decouple. This before that they weren't, but they only partially did. And this is the exact same thing the US is now putting into motion here in Asia. They know that Japan, South Korea, the US is forcing them to do all of this. They themselves know this is not in their best interest. The business interests in these countries are not benefiting from this. They're still like opening factories in China to supply themselves with components for their manufacturing in country, in Japan and South Korea, or factories in the region. But if the US triggers a Ukraine-style conflict here in the region, that would serve as the same type of catalyst to force them to decouple from China, the same way Europe was forced to decouple from Russia. And the US, I don't know if there's any pipelines or cables or something they can blow up or cut here in Asia to really cement it into place. But I'm sure that there are things that they're looking at in order to do that. And the threat of US political interference, infiltration, and political capture still looms over all of these countries in the region. Thailand is building a high-speed rail line with China via Laos, which already has a high-speed rail line. Again, courtesy of China. China is giving these countries infrastructure that the West for decades refused to give them. But I still see the US-backed political party walking up and down the streets every time there's local elections. They're still getting their money right now. And they're doing it for this local elections. They're out on the streets campaigning right now. That's still going on. There are still professors in Thai universities brainwashing Thai youths, have been part of US programs, are receiving US money. So this is a process that is still taking place. It is a looming danger. Just as the US succeeded in wrecking Europe, they are still capable of doing that in Asia. That is the threat that is what I think multipolarism needs to double down on exposing and confronting this soft power the US uses to politically capture nations. Because if it was just up to a nation's best interests, the US would have lost a long time ago in Europe and here in Asia.
I agree. I believe that the United States is going to do a Ukraine model vis-a-vis China, although the timing of that is going to be incredible. It's going to take a lot longer, in large part, because you're not talking about cutting off Russia. Russia's economy is very powerful. It's not a lot bigger, but a lot of that has come since the sanctions, actually. Before the sanctions, even up until this day, we still are talking about a Russia that is mainly dependent upon exporting certain raw materials, and of course, its military-industrial complex has boomed, and now some Russian people are very pro-Russian people, which I would consider I am for Russia's sovereignty. They say, oh, well, what about the passenger ships? What about these? Yes, Russia's economy is developing very fast, but it is dependent upon exporting oil and other kinds of the resources in that way. It is not a manufacturing powerhouse yet. China, however, is the globe's manufacturing powerhouse, and actually Asia as a whole is the world's manufacturing manufacturing powerhouse. So to cut off China and the rest of Asia from themselves is going to be a very difficult feat, because if you do that, unlike sanctions on Russia, which had a very bad effect on the world economy, but it's going to be a lot worse. We already just saw with the tariffs, just the threat of full decoupling between the U.S. and China was going to send the United States into recession, which is why Trump is doing the market manipulation. Not just because he wants to make money, which is people's theory, but it's because the United States cannot afford to go into a manufacturing recession right now. Politically, for the Trump administration, of course, all the damage you could cause, unpredictable damage you could cause. So, in many respects, yes, this is a strategy. It's going to be very complicated, which is why my fear is that it will spiral into, if not stop, the United States moving toward a position of, it's nuclear first use policy, moving into, well, we're at this existential stage. We can't go any farther. We can't fight the military. We can't fight it economically. Oh, look, we have this bomb, and we just need a reason. We just need a way. And hell, the United States came very close with Russia in the Ukraine conflict toward building on toward that. And so, any thoughts on this, Brian, before we get on to the audience questions?
Yeah, I don't think people should underestimate just how far the U.S. is to achieve this. We know now, because of many issues in the Western media, that the U.S. considered using nuclear weapons during the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the the Taiwan Strait crisis also. So why wouldn't they think about using it again as it gets more and more desperate? The other thing that is scary is that this whole economic war they're waging on China, they know is destroying the American economy, especially not for the billionaires. They'll know that they'll always be okay. And that's the only welfare that actually exists in the United States for billionaires. But the ordinary people and the cost of living, Danny, you're in the U.S. I already tell you, I have family members that are still in the U.S. That's all the companies. So cost is going up. What is President Trump doing about any of this? Nothing. Yeah. And the tariffs, he knew. This is what caused it in the first place. The tariffs during his first administration, the Biden administration cooperating with the Trump administration, continuing and expanding on those tariffs. That is why you have a cost of living crisis. And that is working its way to other areas of the economy. And that's just going to make it worse and worse. What the U.S. believes is that they cannot compete with China. They will never surpass China. They cannot rebuild themselves and innovate. Now, even if they had all things equal, China still has 4 to 5 times the population of the U.S. It's just never going to happen. So what is their actual strategy? It's to destroy everything and hope that they can come out best positioned to rebuild. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie or something. But this is what's going on in their head as they get desperate. So one thing they won't accept is, again, a proportional role in the world, where just like in China, you could be a billionaire, you could be rich, you can have your yacht, and also the people who are buying your products get eat healthy food, go to the hospital when they're sick, and get maternity leave and things like that. Like, everybody could win. But in their mind, that's not how the world works. It's a zero-sum game of domination and subordination. And as long as that's the virus, that's the real mind virus affecting America. As long as that persists, we all suffer.
Yeah, I mean, 100% true. It's the United States is as not, a lot of people are saying, oh, why are you still in the United States? Yes, the United States elite, the empire, the oligarchy, however you want to call it, they're not sleepwalking. They are very wide awake. They are moving in a very wide awake fashion toward this war. And with this trade war, we just saw that zero-sum mentality explode. Of course, it always backfires on the United States, but they don't care. The elite, they don't care. They will continue to pursue this up until they exhaust everything, and then we have probably the biggest crisis that humanity's ever faced once that occurs, once that exhaustion occurs. But Brian, let us get to an audience question or two. How about we start and keep it on China? Brian, what do you know about China's thorium revolution?
I've been hearing about this. I've been hearing about thorium for many years. I think if anyone would actually make this a reality in China. I think there's all kinds of, like they're also working on fusion instead of fission. There's also fusion. They're working on that as well. And I think if anyone has a chance of succeeding, it will be China. China is pushing the boundaries of everything in ways that the U.S. could have been, but isn't, and could actually be working together with China to push magic. That would be for all of humanity, absolutely everything.
Yeah, I can show article from the South China Morning Post on Gates. China is the world's first operational thorium nuclear reactor thanks to strategic stamina. The team working on the project reportedly achieved milestone by completing fuel reloading while experimental molten salt reactor was running. Don't know what any of that means. Sounds all good, but let's read the first several paragraphs. Chinese scientists have achieved a milestone in clean energy technology by successfully adding fresh fuel to an operational thorium molten salt reactor, according to state media. It marks the first long-term stable operation of the technology, putting China in the forefront of the global race to harness thorium, considered a safer and more abundant alternative to uranium for nuclear power. China was outside the budget of scientists, the Xi during a meeting at the Chinese Academy of Sciences on April 8th, said that the Golden Dare. On Friday, the experimental reactor located in the Gobi Desert in China's west uses molten salt as a fuel character and cooled with thorium, a radioactive element abundant in Earth's crust as a fuel source. The reactor is reportedly designed to sustainably generate 2 megawatts of thermal power. And this is the big deal here.
Finish?
This is the big deal. Some experts see the technology as the next energy revolution, claiming that just one thorium-rich mine.
Only the basic.
China's energy moves
Basic.
billions of
No,
thousands
because different venue and I want to go different places. Oh. Oh, not permanent.
The eye, United States right now, the direction of the economy and state.
And they don't talk about any advancements in China. The average American, they think Chinese people still riding around on bicycles like that footage from the 70s and 80s. They'll never talk about the largest high-speed rail network on planet Earth built between 2006 and 7 up until now. That was all done in just that short period of time. All the innovation, construction, the engineering feat that represents that. They will never talk about that. And they will never talk about this. This is something that I am going to look into deeper. And if I think there's enough information, maybe I'll write an article on it and also the video.
So let's do one more question. Jahan, Ryan, walk us through what he thinks will happen between us and Iran. Thanks. I should remember. Thanks. Ryan.
I highly recommend people search for
Calling from where? Oh, okay. What about? What's this all about? I haven't been to R&D for many years. I don't know anything. Very nice neighborhood. Is it where the OG family is? I can see I just got it. So I don't take nothing, I just walk. Just like that. Oh, I don't know. If I'm free, I'm not really well. between 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Just collapse under Trump. Well, Trump's FAA, for example, finds that it is no longer capable of keeping air traffic control systems reliably up and running at, say, Newark Airport, at one of the airports serving the nation's largest metropolitan area, as Trump's Pentagon has just dropped not one but two F-18 fighter jets into the sea. Just swoop right off the aircraft carrier and oops, that's gone. Nevertheless, in true thundercratic fashion, the dear leader has his plane. He has just arranged for himself, as Senator Schatz was just talking about there, he's just arranged for himself a transparency and for us, the public, we've got, airline CEOs emailing customers today saying, oh God, geez, this air traffic control thing, let's keep flying. We swear we're being as safe as we can. That's what the public is contending with. What is true here? He's getting his own $400 million personal plane as a gift from a foreign country, and he's going to go do some deals with. That's President of the United States coming out today on his capability country. And for us, the public, we're all dealing with the cancellations and the delays and the reduced number of routes and the panic from the air traffic controllers who've been put in this situation by whatever is going on at Trump's FAA. The public are wondering what it meant when these guys insisted on putting in Starlink at the FAA. Mr. inexplicably using equipment from the company run by the president's top campaign donor to supposedly upgrade our air traffic safety systems a few weeks ago without a budgeting process right after that same donor demanded the resignation of the head of the FAA. Well, wondering that the FAA is apparently no longer able to reliably keep air traffic control systems running at the major airports. Should we be worried that maybe that might be one that's also going to fall apart? And that's how it's going for us, the flying public. But for him, also flying Alice, he gets to keep small suckers. In the shadow of the plane debacle tonight, that's a textbook example of how a kleptocracy works, where the guy at the top converts the assets and functions of the nation and its government for his own purposes, and everybody else gets nothing. Like, that's how kleptocracy works. In the shadow of that plane debacle still unfolding tonight, we got another story for you this evening about Trump doing something for himself, while apparently making sure that nobody else in the country can get that same thing. We've also got news tonight on Trump's apparently illegal efforts to fire people and shut down parts of the federal government that he doesn't actually control.
Again, let's just talk about the mainstream media coverage of two very different presidencies. How much did we hear about Hunter Biden? And now Donald Trump's kids are setting up their crypto scheme. They're announcing golf courses around the world in countries that are giving Donald Trump $400 million bribes that he's striking deals with, and no one wants to say a word. This is insanity. And this is just being treated like, well, it's a gift. Just jerks his head up. He just gets surprised. He's false in this meeting. If Joe Biden had done this, it'd be the only clip you ever see where leaves months leaders on, and it'd be the defining moment for the mainstream media for his presidency. That is all we need to see. Anything to say, folks, for this clip right here.
Signing on behalf of the United States, the Honorable Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America.
He doesn't even know where he is in the room. He's signing a deal, and he has a yes to his right.
The Honorable Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America.
instead of being up and going there, he walks across the room, just kind of all confused out of it, doesn't really know what's going on, and he had to like a child, like he needs to like one of those vests. It's just like have a leash on. Is that what we're gonna do to the president of the United States? Really? Like, we need someone holding his hands and tugging him along so he can be in the right place and put his feet down on the blue line and take coming round. And we saw this yesterday too. Donald Trump is consistently giving speeches announcing executive actions. He did this on Liberation Day. We saw it yesterday. Where he gives the speech and he just walks out of the room. And somebody's like dragging it back and saying, no, the speech that you just gave 30 minutes of you talking about an executive order you're going to sign, you didn't have to sign the executive order that's right there.
On Chinese cars from the insurance companies claimed it was a decision of the insurance companies control. Yet, in reality, it was utterly insurance actively pushed this on fame. Utterly is the details of what China sees of comprehension. She acts as US's spokesperson insisted that certain Biden administration may draw the respiratory tolerance by China hesitating on China. Trump despises everything that Biden names. His target states not only for U.S. national interests, but also for universal rights. European countries and generals rely on Trump. So Trump used a harsh discipline to make his anger. The aircraft as another example. China has purchased large numbers of Airbus planes, creating significant opportunities for Europe. In China, the U.S. clashed years ago with terrorists. China boycotted all the sectors of both aircraft. Airbus let down maintaining its mission. China's C-919 commercial airliner has been unable to obtain European certification. The EU has repeatedly with various excuses, and such backstabbing behavior has greatly angered China. Since the EU is not willing to defend China, further on Trump. China, the U.S. will Trump, but China has the strongest industrial capabilities, the highest GDP growth, the largest population, the best infrastructure, and the most robust domestic circulation. China cannot take extreme measures to engage in dynamic ways that can free up others' powers to maximize its interests. The EU is left out against the superpowers, lacking economic and democratic systems. It heavily relies on the U.S. for security, and its technological systems are far less comprehensive and advanced than those of the U.S. and China. The U.S. has long aimed to dominate both China and India, but its strength cannot support such ambitions. China's ideal approach is to join forces with the EU to push the U.S. to the negotiating table and share benefits. However, the EU's strategy is to align the U.S. as much as possible to target China. In response, China collaborates with the U.S. to target the EU, as this approach incurs minimal costs, and Europe lacks the capacity to resist. However, China cannot be swayed by emotions. For now, it is merely possible to let the EU suffer a bit. If possible, in the future, China will still seek cooperation with the EU. This requires Europe to abandon its hostility toward China. Otherwise, China will sacrifice some interests to compromise with the U.S. or to engage with the EU to offset China's losses. Welcome back to Celebrity Home.
varieties of oxens. Charlesville, once a poor boy, one dog, and now become one of the most powerful weapons in Hong Kong City. By the 1990s, a new face had risen, Stephen Chow. Following the massive success of Wolf, William, and Fight Back to School, Stephen Chow's name shone like a blazing star. His per-film fee quickly skyrocketed to $700,000 Hong Kong dollars. The studios scrambled to make work. But Charles Hearn acted first. I'll pay you $3 million Hong Kong dollars per film. You just need to do what you do best. Make people laugh and drive Hong Kong crazy for you. With an unprecedented policy of valuing more talent, Charles Hearn secured Stephen Chow. And with him, firmly held onto the crown of category 2 films. Didn't stop. He also successfully recruited Bob G, the master of commercial cinema, to join Wins. Wins doesn't just need to win, Charles declared. We have to lead. From that point on, Wins operated like a perfect machine, producing films, training stars, and dominating the box office. Thanks to his strategic vision, unyielding spirit, and iron will, Charles Hearn transformed his film into one of the three major forces in Hong Kong cinema, standing shoulder to shoulder with Cinema City of Sean Connery. From two nameless young men, the Pure Brothers had carved their names into the golden history of the entertainment industry, giving a symbol of power and success for generations to come. Since ancient times, beauties have always gravitated towards heroes. But few know that there are heroes who once fully changed their entire lives for the sake of beauty. At the peak of Charles Hearn's career, he became the centre of attention for campus fans. It was an era when just mentioning the name Charles Hearn made the entire Hong Kong entertainment industry bow their heads, and every famous beauty longed to Michelle Chilton quietly withdrew from the spotlight, choosing to become the woman silently standing behind his success. Michelle Chilton, knowing her place, was always generous and understanding. She never interfered with her husband's nightly parties, nor showed jealousy toward the many beauties surrounding her. That peaceful world began to waver with the appearance of Joanna. At that time, Joanna was just 18 years old, a single girl handing out flyers in the street. But from the very first moment she saw her, Charlotte was captivated. Those eyes, that smile, he whispered, they made my whole world come to a halt. From that moment on, Charles poured his heart into nurturing Joanna. In her career, he gave her opportunities any actress would dream of. In her life, he spared no expense to fulfill her every wish. Whatever you want, he once said, I'll turn all of Hong Kong into a stage just for you. Under Charles Ford's guidance, Joanna's career soared like a catapult. From the wicked city to city on fire, she landed one high-profile role after another. He even sidelined other major stars for her. She reached up, a celebrated actress, angrily left Week's Entertainment because she could no longer tolerate the overwhelming favoritism shown towards Joanna. Once on set, Charles Cook stood before the entire crew, stared straight at director Wong Jing, and coldly declared, there is only one female lead here, and that is Joanna. The incident during the filming of The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber even became a legendary story, and no one dared to speak of her. Just one look of dissatisfaction towards Joanna, and consequences swiftly followed. An unspoken warning that made the entire industry tread carefully. And with just one backward glance, one faint smile in the film, Joanna became an icon of beauty, a classic figure in Hong Kong cinema history. For 9 years, Charles Cook's love for Joanna never ended, even after she left me. Entertainment, even through the ups and downs of her career, quietly protected her. Whenever you need me, even at midnight, I'll come, he once messaged her when she was struggling financially. It wasn't just love, it was the compassion and protection that only a man with my life's storms could give to loved. They thought that after his divorce from Michelle Chilton, they could finally be together. Charles once embraced Joanna and whispered, I owe you a right one. Yes, this time I will give it to you. But fate cruelly intervened once again. One day, a fortune teller whom Charles deeply trusted gave a chilling promise. This woman will bring neither prosperity nor fortune. If you marry her, your career will fall apart. Charles stood silently for a long time. On one side was a love. That had endured nearly a decade. On the other, the vast empire of painstaking. That night, he sat outside. Clutching Joanna's hand, James smoking the entire pack of cigarettes, his eyes bloodshot. I'm sorry, he finally muttered, his voice choked with grief. I don't have the courage to define